Hey guys, we are here today for another episode of the Butt Dyno Report, and this week we've got the 034 Motorsports billet aluminum Dogbone mount and their aluminum puck inserts. You're replacing the whole thing. The reason you want to do this is the pendulum mount on the back of the engine that goes from the transmission to the subframe, and under hard acceleration and launches, which we do on the Butt Dyno Report video, it can actually break the stock one because it's a little flimsy steel. This is probably 2 to 3 times as thick as the stock one. So this should lock the engine down under hard acceleration and just put more power to the ground, because you're losing half a horsepower, 1 horsepower, maybe 2 if you're lucky. Well, gaining it back if you're lucky, by having a little bit too much of a sloppy engine movement. So you want to lock it down with this, and you don't want that mount to break. So we're gonna get in. I mean, I've kind of talked a little bit about how the car feels right now. Just gonna get this sucker swapped in. So this is the aftermath of the unfortunate night that was not meant to be. We couldn't get the pucks in. They're about 2 millimeters bigger than the pucks that came out, which I know were squished in a little bit. Maybe a hydraulic press could have shoved them in there, but we actually have some 034 Motorsports solid pucks coming in. They should be here. My wife's dropping them off pretty quick. I just finished a nice day of work, and they should slide right in. We're gonna see if they're even different sizes than these. These were non-OEM. They were like 20 bucks for the 2 of them. These were OEM. OEM was like $160, and I just didn't want to pay it, and I guess you get what you pay for. Also, this was interesting coming out, the insert. I'm glad I had the subframe out so I could push it out. That might be the way to get those out in the future. But I'm glad I didn't have to pull it out with it still stuck in there, if there's some silver lining to this situation. So now that the old mount is out of the car, you can kind of see the difference. It's a little thicker up here on this aluminum. It's a different construction. This part, I'm leaving it wrapped in because we've got a spherical bushing for this guy. But the second piece right here, these two, this is much beefier. So overall, it just has a more beefy construction. And then we've got this spherical bushing here, which is zip tied in to just further reduce deflection from the rubber that's in there. But this should just really lock that engine down, make sure it doesn't move under heavy acceleration and deceleration. So I am holding in my hand the original plan. You can tell that the car is running and these are not in. And that's because the pucks did not fit. The ones that I was sent, I bought the second cheapest ones on ECS, were 2 millimeters too big. Just quality control from rain, I think, just kind of, I'm sure if we had a hydraulic press, it would have gone in, but we didn't have it. So I actually ended up overnighting some new pucks from 034 Motorsports. They're the density line, they're solid pucks, so setting off, you can hear it. You probably even feel it through the camera, it's probably shaking that much. But they're stiffer. Paired with the 034 Motorsports billet aluminum Dogbone mount, it's more race car than I was intending. The original plan was to use, here's the other piece, these inserts to just make a comfortable mount a little bit stiffer. So me and Mark tried for a very long time to get those pucks that were too big in. They just wouldn't go in. We'd almost get them and they just weren't going in. So I got those the new ones overnighted. They went in not easily, but easier. And now those are in, everything's back together, everything's running. I have quite a few observations. First of all, I knew that the bolt was not coming out of that top puck, but I didn't realize it was because the mount was broken. I thought it was just kind of, the nut was spinning in there, but makes sense that the mount itself was actually broken. And I'd said a couple times that I missed some gear, I can't remember which one specifically, And I'm like, oh, I gotta get the shifter adjusted. I think it was actually the mount. The mount was causing excessive movement in the transmission because that's where the Dogbone is hooked up to. So when I was driving hard and slamming it into gear, the movement from that might have just set it off just a little bit, so the length of the cable on the transmission was not quite right, causing it to just, I would hit the gate, it felt like I'd miss just a little bit, and it was really weird. Because I'm not gonna say I'm perfect, but it was like, I've done this hundreds, thousands of times, and yet now all of a sudden there's a couple times when I'm missing. So I think it was broken. And also, clutch engagement feels so much better because the transmission is stuck there. It is not moving, so clutch engagement, super nice. Also, shifter feel is improved as well because it's just tight. Everything is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Everything is just, there's full information going from the shifter and the clutch pedal to the transmission. It makes this car feel less broken. Less broken is the right word for it. These pucks, being solid, have a lot of NVH, but only at one particular time. So if I say I'm in fifth, cruising, see if you can hear it, you can probably hear how many vibrations there are at lower RPMs. And that's just the nature of this. The engine wants to move a lot more, so it's just sending those vibrations through into the cabin. But you're cruising, not a lot. You're up over, I think it was about 2,000 RPMs. There's very, very minimal vibrations. So then, I'll give you guys a little insight onto the other downside. Setting off. So when you're coming from a complete stop and you're actually engaging the clutch, there's quite a lot of vibration. I'm sure I showed the clip earlier when I first left that it's pretty harsh, and that's only maybe if you're city driving, there's a lot more. But for me, that's probably only about 10% of driving is the low RPM, high gear, and setting off. I've started just changing my driving style a little bit to keep it in higher RPMs. But it's not bad. This puck is stiff. I was recommended to not get it for a daily driver, but then I got just pigeonholed myself. Getting in these situations is always funky. And I thought, you know what? It is still cheaper to buy these 034 pucks and overnight them than it is to buy the OEM ones and keep the pucks that don't fit. Changing pucks is pretty brutal. Would not recommend it if you don't have to do it. Was not a huge fan. But there's a lot to be said about what this Dogbone mount and what these pucks do. It keeps the transmission and the engine from bucking under power. I'll put it in a little bit of a higher gear, fourth. The transmission of that power is not a ha-chunk like that. It's smooth, it's a lot more linear. It's still a boosted power band. It's not an NA power band. But you don't have that slop from that Dogbone mount that's gonna go ha-chunk every time you try to hit it. You hit it, you get a little bit, but I did some testing right before I took it off just because I was like, you know what, I gotta do in-gear acceleration. And there's a lot of lurching. This is much better. I think some of that lurching was probably also from the fact that the mount was broken. I am honestly very surprised I did not obliterate the stock Dogbone mount, because I've heard it's a weak point when you're adding power, and too many hard launches can actually cause it to break. It didn't for me. I counting my blessings. Very nice. I'm glad it didn't. Go slowly over the bumps. Overall, this whole replacement I feel like has been absolutely worth it. If you can just get away with doing the Dogbone mount and an insert, do that. It feels so much better. There's so much more driver engagement from this setup. With the spherical bushing that's in the 034 Dogbone mount, there's just a lot less deflection. You don't have to worry about engine movement. There's a lot more power getting put to the ground because everything's stiffer. I'm more stiff than a lot of people probably want on this. I don't want to say it that way. I wanted to try something. Will I go for a solid Dogbone puck again? Probably not, but I'm not gonna complain too much because it still feels fantastic. I mean, we're on some nice twisty roads right here. And the clutch pedal feels so good. The power delivery is great with this. At the end of the day, the Dogbone mount is a must-buy for your Mark 6 GTI. There's lots out there, but I really like the 034 billet one. Just the quality of it, you can feel it in the construction when you just hold it. You're like, dang, it's nice. And it is nice. It does exactly what it says it's supposed to do. And power down, send it. Don't have to worry about lurching. Don't have to worry about just that Dogbone mount breaking from the factory. Anyways, guys, this has been a bit of a different Butt Dyno video. I know there was some more installed pieces. I didn't do a full just install video because I thought it was going to be a lot more straightforward than it was. And then we got way in the deep end. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe. Have a great day. And remember, Jesus loves you. Bye.